What will be your first action of mission as Vice Chief? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Well, thank you for everybody coming out tonight. If I'm elected, one of the first things I would like to do would be to spend time in each of the departments. One of the things that has troubled me in talking to tribal employees is that every 2 or 4 years they become pawns in the political game. And so what I would like to do is spend time going through each of the departments, getting to know the employees. I think it's imperative that we know, as a vice chief, having run my own business, being a manager, it's imperative that you have a good working relationship with your employees. And when I owned my own business, the reason we were successful was there were 2 people in particular that we listened to, our customers and our employees. Your customers can always tell you what their needs and their wants are so that you can meet those. But your employees, they're the people who are in the trenches doing the work every day. They know what's really going on. And I love the old saying, when you talk to the person in charge, you can talk to the person who knows what's going on. The employees know what's going on. And so if we're going to be successful in carrying out our mission of serving our people, we have to talk to the people who are in the trenches every day getting it done. So I would spend the first 90 days getting to know the departments, getting to know the employees, finding out what they need to carry out their mission. Because in order for them to be successful, to serve their communities, to serve us, to serve the enrolled members, they need the tools and the resources to get it done. And I would be spending time there getting to know them and then coming back, bringing that to the executive branch and also to council so that we can get the resources to our employees so that we can carry the mission out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sneed. Mr. White, if you're re-elected Vice Chief, what will be your first action of mission as Vice Chief when you're re-elected? Your turn.
Well, let me say this, and welcome tonight. We're glad you took your time to come out. We're going to have a new chief. In about 3 weeks, y'all go to the polls, and we will have a new chief. A change from what I've worked with over the last 12 years. And saying that, I think my first action has to be to go down the hall, talk with the chief, look at what their priorities are. Now, there's been a lot of ideas put out tonight, and certainly that's their platform. That's what they're running on. That's what they see the needs are immediately. I think for me, from the mental health, substance abuse piece, my first mission, and it's ongoing mission, I'm doing it now, but what are the parts and pieces of the continuum of care, if you will, for drug and alcohol? Where are those pieces that are going to be coming online? How quickly? How soon? How do we modify existing buildings? I know we're doing a new Anglanishi building now, so it's going to be under construction soon. That is my pressing issue for the tribe immediately, and certainly it's been ongoing over the years for me, but that's going to be my first mission, if you will, day one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question number 2, Mr. Sneed. Will you be supportive of the Ethics Committee, and will you be supportive of adopting an ethics policy for the tribe?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. One of the issues with the Ethics Committee, and I applaud Tribal Council for making it happen finally. My dad was on Tribal Council back in the 80s, and we've talked a lot about this issue. He said, we've been trying to get ethics passed, for decades. And I guess the real question that we have to ask is why hasn't it happened yet? Personally, I think that there are a lot of things that we could do right out of the gate. There are ordinances on the books that if they were applied to elected officials with the same measure that they're applying to tribal employees, a lot of ethics issues could be dealt with. The big thing with having an ethics committee and having an ethics policy is it has to have teeth. It has to outline what the offenses are, it has to outline what the consequences are, and it has to outline who can bring that to council's attention and what the processes will be. Otherwise, it's just words on paper. We have ordinance, the tribal code is a book, this thick. It's words on paper if there's no mechanism for enforcement. So with the ethics committee, my hope is that they will outline policies that will make it so that any enrolled member could bring a charge, if you will, if they witness, because we get the question, well, what about vote buying and all these things? That you as an enrolled member, if you witness any elected official behaving in a way that is immoral or unethical, that you as an individual enrolled member could come to council and report it and action would be taken. That must be in there, or it's simply words on paper. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bond, will you be supportive of the Ethics Committee, and will you be supportive of adopting an ethics policy for the tribe? Your time.
Absolutely. I am glad that the committee's working hard. They've been out in the communities. They've held, I think someone reported 3 meetings to this point. Ethics is a code of conduct. An ethics code of conduct has to be put in place. If you're talking about accountability to the people, I think ethics and accountability go hand in hand. You have to be able to prove what you're trying to do. You have to have some measurable standard. And that's from the accountability side. On the ethics side, you have to have an accountability standard for yourself. And that can be by law. That can be put in as a law. It can be put in legislatively. I think you've got to have an ethics commission that will oversee that. As Mr. Sneed said, you've got to be able to certainly hear a complaint, but you've got to have someone independently to look at that. And if it rises to the level of legislative sanctions, whatever those may be, built into what the Ethics Committee is trying to do, that's one thing. If it rises to the level of criminal activity, that's another thing. But the Ethics Commission is going to be key to making a code of ethics work.
Thank you. Mr. Sneed, if you're elected as Vice Chief, what is your thoughts on Section 17? And if Section 17 is passed by council, would you support it, and would you support a referendum vote?
Okay, well, the first part, Section 17, I think, has really been confused, and a lot of people have been confused by it. The issue that I think everybody is opposed to was Ordinance 441. And Ordinance 441, which everybody's calling Section 17, absolutely would not support at all. Just the language of it, it gave too much power away. We're already doing, like our relationship with Harris Cherokee Casino, we're already operating in the same guidelines as Section 17. So the way that ordinance was worded, absolutely not, would not support that, did not support that, came out against that. We really, as I say, we're already doing that. We need to look at diversification. We could begin to acquire companies that are already operating, companies that have maybe a 10-year history where we could look at the numbers and see how profitable they've been, so we could acquire. We could look at doing startups for 8A contracts. Startups bring a little bit more risk, but it's something we could look into. And definitely we could always expand the portfolio. We're getting about 6 to 8% return on that currently. If you look at the budget that's been proposed, that's a very, very small percentage. So with investment, there's always risk. But the thing that's happened is we've become very dependent on the very high yielding return that we get from gaming. So with that in mind, we need to look at expanding our gaming operation, perhaps in Georgia. If Georgia does approve it, we should be first in line to get to apply to bid for a gaming license in the state of Georgia to expand into that territory, because that is the type of revenue we have become accustomed to. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Blythe, what is your thoughts on Section 17? And if Section 17 is passed by council, would you support it? And would you support a referendum vote? Your time.
Section 17 is not what our tribe needs. Section 17 is an opportunity for tribes to get involved in various ventures. Our tribe, and I say that I do not support Section 17. Our tribe has created tribally chartered LLCs. That's what the casino operates under. Been very successful. It has a board of directors, but you have that answerability to the tribal council. That is where Section 17 does not have that. It's just a standalone operation, too much authority and a handful of folks. The opportunity that we need to look at, 8A contracting, other tribally chartered corporations, tribally chartered holding companies. And I say that because I'm on a committee that was appointed by Mark Meadows, our congressman. It's called Tennessee Valley Corridor Leadership Group. Involved in that, I've been able to go to Oak Ridge, been able to go to Huntsville, Alabama. Huge opportunities of contracts that we, the tribe, through an 8A, through a LLC, can participate in immediately. Section 17 will not give us the flexibility we need to get involved into those operations. Within 150 miles each year, $50 million of federal contracts set aside for minorities. We create an 8A, we're already at the table. We're already being able to do and receive that diversity of income. And we can do a couple of things. We can use our land to build a factory, to build parts for the Space Center in Huntsville, or we can just have a small office with some very educated folks. I'm sorry.
Time.
I got a lot to say about this.
Mr. Sneed, how will you control the tribal credit card use and tribal vehicle use for personal gain if elected by the chief? Your time.
Right, we have the opportunity now with technology to where all of that information, and that is public information, that could be online on the tribe's website. It's very simple. Put it out there, let everybody see, and then if anybody has a question about a particular expenditure, then they could go through finance and find out what the expenditure was for. That has to happen. When we talk about transparency, those are buzzwords during an election season. Transparency. Well, transparency is just that. We get to see as enrolled members everything that's going on. We shouldn't have to jump through hoops to do that. That's information that could be made public. It could be put on the tribe's website. It could be published in the One Feather Weekly, and not just the total, but the actual itemized expenditures and who made the purchases. Because it's meaningless to put a number out there and say, well, this month we spent this much money. Well, on what, and who spent it, and for what? I think that if you put that kind of accountability out there, you'll begin to see those expenditures go down. That goes back to having sound management and having good managers in the department, because typically it's going to be the managers are the ones who hold the credit cards. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question, Mr. Bly. How will you control the tribal credit card abuse and the tribal vehicle use for personal gain?
We've taken steps in the purchasing department to go to the P cards, as someone mentioned earlier, eliminating the tribal credit cards now, for program purchases. The vehicles each have a credit card, I think. They're either fleet, GSA, or something. Those are tracked, and what we've done, we've worked with the Cherokee Boys Club through their system. Gas purchases that we do are there. We've had, in times past, folks that would go to Shell, would go here, go there. Very hard to keep up with, so now we have a central organization. The vehicle issue, and again, there is a waste, fraud, and abuse hotline. And so if someone, and I'm going to talk about vehicles a little, if you see a vehicle, certainly that's at the credit union or at Food Line or down here at Ingalls, I mean, some are legitimate. I mean, certainly we don't want to totally over-police, I guess. But if you suspect something, there is a fraud hotline that can be called. Internal audit looks at purchases. In fact, they've done an audit of my credit card use. I know the chief's credit card use. They do audits on different programs, and they look for those weaknesses that are going to help shore up expenditures, whether they're big expenditures or small. Certainly, I mean, if you're buying a girdle at Walmart, that's not a legitimate expenditure, I don't think. But, but there is that opportunity to report. Internal audit has the authority to do investigations on small amounts or large. And they're doing audits every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sneed? Do you think elected officials should receive retirement pensions after they're voted out or decide not to run anymore, including their spouses? Your time.
Thank you. One of the things we have to address on this when we talk about pensions, and it's one thing to say, and I agree with what Mary's saying, office, we are public servants. I get that. The thing we have to look at is that if we're going to attract people who are educated, who have real-world business experience, if there's no pension attached to this position, I think it's going to be difficult to attract people. Here's why. I currently work as a school teacher. I've been to the school for 11 years. If I run for office, and say, for example, I were to run for council, and I made it, and I was in for 2 years, and say I didn't get voted back in, I can't just go back and get my job back and start building my pension. So having a pension per se, there's not a problem. I don't have a problem with anybody. In fact, everybody who has a job, I think, should have a retirement attached to that. Okay? I don't agree with the spouse piece. You're not electing my wife. You're electing me, and I'm going to work hard for you. But you're not electing my spouse. And so I don't agree with the spouse part. What was the last part of the question, please, sir?
Including your spouse, do you, as an elected official, should you receive retirement pensions after you're voted out or decide not to run? Including your spouse?
Yeah, so definitely not on the including the spouse, but if we're going to attract highly qualified people, there has to be a compensation package attached to that. Yeah. It's just a part of doing business, and even though we're public servants, we are doing business, and so we have to look at it that way. All tribal employees have a pension. It's just a simple fact. We have to have that in place if we're going to attract qualified people. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bly, do you think elected officials should receive retirement pensions after they're voted out or decide not to run anymore from office, including their spouses? Your time.
Let's talk about the tribal council first. I think the tribal council, the situation that they have set up for their retirement is reasonable. And again, we talk about longevity. If we have a good council member that people want to keep in there, they should, and the system we have allows them to get a compensation based on years of service, based on their ending salary. That's reasonable. They don't get a 401k. They don't, and so you look at the sacrifice, I suppose, that they make over time. They should be able to get that. On the chief side, you know, that was set in place when John Crow was chief. I think the council at that time, and the law is still the same, allowed John to get, or Chief Crow, to get a portion of his salary as it moved forward. Also included in that, and this was an honorarium, if you will, to his wife. Because I tell you what, if I serve, my wife is involved as I am. She's got late nights, she's going to meetings, she's doing those things. I have no problem, as it presently sits, with the spouse receiving that. Now, the tribal council can change the law, and that's perfectly fine with me if they choose to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Sneed, do you think the last pay raise was done legally, and if so, how?
I don't believe it was. As I read the ordinance, what should have happened was the pay raise should go to the next council that's seated. That's how I read it. Now, that's going to be adjudicated. We'll see. There's a lawsuit. So a judge is going to rule on that. What troubles me the most is that when the people came and wanted to have their voice heard, they were shut down. That's what troubles me the most. Because for me, even to the idea of bringing that type of pay raise, and the part that the law doesn't even speak to is the back pay. There's no mention of back pay compensation at all anywhere in that ordinance. So I don't know how that came about. So from the way I read it, that part is illegal. A judge is going to decide on that. We'll see what happens. I think that the real question there was it ethical? Was it an ethical thing to do? That is, was the perception of the people, hey, yeah, you guys earned it and you deserve it. I don't think that was the perception of the people. I think the perception of the people was, you know, that council's doing this and we didn't have a say-so with it. And the way, if you watched council that day, the way that it went down, it was like real quick. You know, is that what we're doing? Yeah, okay, all in favor? Aye. It just didn't look good at all. It looked unethical the way it was carried out. And then when the people wanted to have their voice heard, we're not hearing that. To me, that part is unethical. We'll see what the judge says about it, take a legality of it.
Thank you. Mr. Blythe, same question. Do you think the last pay raise was done legally? Council, your time.
Well, I can speak to my pay raise. There was a study done, comp data, that came in and said, Vice Chief, your salary should be this. The council approved what that study said. As far as the council's pay raise, that's a different animal, if you will. I think as Mr. Sneeds pointed out, a court of law will decide if that was done legally or illegally. Certainly, I think the budget as it was presented and that day as the budget was acted on was done, I'll say, in haste. I don't think there was a lot of discussion. I think those go back to the rules of order for the council. I think you put some of that responsibility certainly on the chair of the council, the vice chair. They go through budgets, and we're in that process now for 3 weeks. And so someone on the tribal council, I don't have a vote whether they give me a raise or not, someone on that tribal council should have stopped and said, whoa, wait, let's analyze this just a little further. Didn't occur, it was passed, the entire budget was passed, as I understand that day, and certainly what was deemed appropriate to me was included in that. I've always talked when the issue of raises come up. I think I'm very well compensated. I've never gone in and promoted myself for a raise. I've never taken that stance. The tribe, as I serve you, compensates me very well. And so I've never been an advocate for a raise in my position.
Thank you. Last question, Mr. Sneed. And this kind of hits home here. Will you humbly support and be supportive to the Snowbird community and Cherokee County? And will you try to attend as much as possible each community meeting, and why?
When I first ran for Vice Chief 8 years ago, I had only been to Snowbird a couple times when I was in high school, coming out here for games. And I don't know how it's for anybody else. I'm not really good at going up and knocking on doors. Hey, how you doing? And so I was nervous. I'm like, gosh, I can honestly say that every time I've come down to Snowbird, I've met some of the kindest, most hospitable, warm-hearted people. And I've had the honor of coming down here and preaching at the church right over here, and it was wonderful. And my wife talked about everybody. They just treated us like we were family, like they've known us all along, and it was just wonderful. And so Snowbird for me, and my wife and I talk about it. And say, every time I think about going to Snowbird, I just get that warm feeling because you guys are great. And so for me, that's not a tough question to answer. I love this community. I love the people I've met down here, and everybody's always made me feel welcome and like family. As far as the Vice Chief's office goes, I've said from the beginning that the Vice Chief, to me, should be the ambassador to the community. And the Vice Chief should be very active and present in the community. And the Vice Chief should be at all the community club meetings to hear what the concerns of the people are. Not to come and say, this is what you ought to be doing, but instead listening and hearing what your concerns are. And I've heard some of the concerns, just being down here. Snowbird's always left out. Snowbird's always, we get the birds that fall from the table. If I'm Vice Chief, that won't happen because I will be your advocate in the executive branch. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Blythe. Re-elected Vice Chief, will you humbly support and be supportive to the Snowbird community and Cherokee County, and try to attend as much as possible at each community meeting, and why? Your time.
Well, this is my home. This is where I live. Jackson Branch. Been down here for 5 years now. I love it. It's certainly a good change from the hectic lifestyle of Cherokee. Someone mentioned earlier we can take our kids to the creek and they can still enjoy the swimming. They can take the hiking, the waterfalls, all those things that the pace of Cherokee it just goes too quickly. But this is my home. Certainly, I try to participate in those events that I'm aware of. I get invited to many, many things across the reservation. And I try to come to as many down here as I can. I mean, I live about 5 miles from here. And so we, you know, our kids are involved in the sports programs. The Boys and Girls Club that certainly I've enjoyed working with, but this is my community. This is my community. And certainly I'm going to do everything I can to lift it up, to bring those jobs, to bring the educational opportunities that I don't ever want us to say we're getting the crumbs. I just won't believe that. And so I'm going to do everything I can for Snowbird community and Cherokee County as well to see that we're raised as all the other ships in the reservation are raised. As the tide goes up, all of us go up together. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, at this time, each candidate will have 4 minutes for a closing statement. 4 minutes. Mr. Sneed, your time.
Thank you. Well, I want to say it has been tremendous this campaign season. When I started out in the primary, I had an elder tell me, just get through the primary, and then the real work's going to start. And I remember thinking, how different can it be? Primary, general election. I tell you, there's a world of difference. Literally 12, 14-hour days since the primary's been over. And it's a lot of hard work, but it's been great because I've met just some wonderful, wonderful people in the process. One of the reasons I ran was, you know, what I observed is that we have come to a place where a lot of our elected officials, we've got some good council members, but a lot of our elected officials, this disconnect happens after they've been in office for a while. And all of a sudden, it's like they forget who it is that they're supposed to be serving and who it is that they represent. And one of the great concerns that I've had, and I see that we're at a real crossroads now, because for the first time in the last 12 years, our revenue stream, that one single revenue stream that we rely on so much, is being threatened. And I recognize and I understand the details, and I tried to get 30 more seconds the other night from the moderator, and I couldn't get it, because I wanted to rebut the point that, yes, I understand that debt belongs to TCGD, but at the end of the day, if we lose 40% of our market share to Georgia or to Catawba or to Tennessee, it doesn't much matter whose name's on the bill. The bottom line is we are all going to be affected in a very, very negative way. And so we've got to begin to diversify. We've got to have an aggressive debt repayment plan so that if something like that does happen, we're not left in the lurch with, you know, well, we're used to spending $558 million and now we only have $250 million coming in. To put that into perspective, $558 million, Charlotte, Mecklenburg County, their budget is almost twice what ours is. But they have 967,000 people live in that county. We have 16,000 enrolled members, and all of them don't even live here. So just put that into perspective. There's this disconnect happens when you start throwing big numbers around and you get used to just dealing with big numbers. They don't seem so big anymore. Folks, they're big numbers. We have to have an aggressive repayment plan. We've got to get on a strategy where we pull back on the spending, start saving more. We've got to be fiscally conservative because we're moving into uncertain times. Now, if it works out that we move into Georgia and we expand our territory there, or perhaps Georgia doesn't approve gaming, or the Catawbas don't get gaming, great. The threat is gone, but we still have got to rein in our spending. We cannot continue to expand the size and scope of government. It doesn't work for the federal government, it doesn't work for the state government, and it will not work for us. So my commitment to you is to be fiscal conservative, to give oversight to the programs and their spending, but most importantly, to bring transparency, true transparency to government, where you will be informed as people as to what's going on, how the money is being spent. I want you to think about those numbers. Where's it all going? That's a tremendous amount of money. So I stand before you tonight, and again, humbly asking you. I recognize the huge and tremendous responsibility that this is, and I humbly ask you to support me, Richard Sneed, to serve as your next vice chief. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Blythe. Madam, you'll have 4 minutes for a closing statement. Your time, ma'am.
Okay. Well, I'm going to speak just from a few notes also. And I had to write mine pretty big, you know, these quiet folks, they sort of get to you. But, you know, I want to thank the community for allowing us to come and be heard tonight. There are big decisions to make. I want to thank you for, again, taking your come and hear the candidates and hopefully afterwards be able to talk and interact with them. You know, here's what I'm saying this term, and I'll stay with it through the election, is that there's no substitute for experience. I have 26 years of experience in tribal government, 14 on the tribal council, and 12 as your vice chief. And I'm asking for 4 more years to help the chief, whomever it may be, when they come into office. They're going to need someone with experience to help them. Hopefully they'll ask for my counsel, my guidance, and certainly it's available to them. That's what I've pledged to each of the candidates for chief. We, there was a ad I put in the paper in the One Fed, and it talks about one heartbeat away. Our chief now fell off a ladder. Could have gotten killed, could have died. He didn't, thank God. Life is very uncertain. I would hope the community and the tribe sees that experience in that second spot is critical as we move forward. And I have that experience. My opponent has no experience in tribal government. 0 experience. I have that. My job is to support the chief. My job is to work with the tribal council, and I've done that. I think I've done it very well. I'm committed to my job. I treat people fairly as I want to be treated. I do it openly. You come to my office, the door's pretty much always open. I do a solid job. I look at the issue with someone, and many of you have been in my office, and you know what I'm talking about. When you're across the desk from me, you got my 100% attention. I'm trying to give you my best advice and to try to give you, as an enrolled member with your issue, what I think is the best advice to help solve it. I don't run you around. I don't say go see Joe or go see Sally. I make those calls and I work hard for you. You know, I've got experience in Washington, D.C., experience in Raleigh. Those things are important as we move issues for the tribe forward. Again, I ask you for your consideration. Again, as I run for the office of Vice Chief, I pledge my support. I pledge to support the chief, whoever that may be, whoever you choose to help govern this tribe and take us forward. We've made great strides in 12 years that I've been Vice Chief. Not all on me, but I tell you what, I'm glad to have had a part of it, and certainly I look forward to the future of this tribe. I ask for your support, I ask for your vote. September 3rd, Larry Blythe. God bless each and every one. Thank you.